Good morning, this is Robin Beaver on the Crude Spread Talk on the 4th of June at 7:48 in the morning London time. The highlights of yesterday's action are that the spreads at the front are looking very toppy, both Brent and WTI, and you've got some bearish divergence developing on Brent, which we'll see in a minute. The back end is okay, toppy, holding, but the 5-day moving averages are going to be very important. But let's deal with the front first, and this is all except Brent. And here it hasn't quite hit its target at plus 14, but it hasn't done badly. It got up to around plus 8 or plus 9 over the last 2 days. It's a huge recovery from minus 236, and we're in an uptrend. However, it's now correcting back. The key is the 5-day moving average at minus 17. Initially, we're printing minus 16. This must hold, or we're going to dip back to the 8-day, likely the 8-day and range support at minus 28. Most worrying is this stochastic bearish divergence. We've actually got bearish divergence. Were we to rally off the 5-day today, that would probably be negated. So this early warning signal, must be watched, but also be aware that if the 5-day moving average holds at minus 17, this spread is just okay and still is displaying some upside. A failure at the 5-day would suggest a loss of momentum higher, which we've already begun to see a bit, and a move down to the 8-day at minus 28 and potentially the 13-day at minus 35. This stochastic here is suggesting that we're going to put the 5-day under pressure. If we just look at the 60-minute chart, it's suggesting a little bit more pressure, but it is not conclusive, or it's far from conclusive this morning. And the SpreadTalk, same detail. Bearish divergence, look at the bottom here, this is bearish divergence. It's now slid below the 5-day at minus 26, it's printing minus 29. It looks like it wants to head for the 8-day at minus 34 and even the 13-day at minus 39. In other words, this is now looking toppy, and in this condition it stays in this condition whilst below the 5-day at minus 26. It's looking dodgy. This bearish divergence is a worry. But the 60-minute chart on the SpreadTalk is looking a bit overcooked to the downside. So watch that 5-day at minus 26 very carefully indeed. Now moving to some back end, the DEC June Brent. It's okay, it's corrected back a bit. It's okay whilst it's above the 5-day at minus 208. Were the 5-day at 208 to hold, then expect to move back to the 8-day at minus 221 area. It's looking a bit fragile. Use the 5-day as the barometer at minus 208. The 60-minute chart reflects, on the left here, reflects weakness, but is not getting a signal that it's going to turn and rally in the immediate future. DEC Red DEC on Brent. Holding the 5-day at minus 348, it already hit its target around the 306 level, so it's correcting back from there. It must hold above the 5-day at minus 348, or it dips further to probably minus 366 area, which is the 8-day moving average. Stochastic positive, but were we to see some weakness, that would display bearish divergence, but it's too early. It's early days yet, and that hasn't developed. The 60-minute chart is suggesting more downside initially this morning. So watch the 5-day at minus 348 very carefully indeed. Now moving on to WTI structure, it's decidedly toppy. If we look at the July org, it's below the 5-day at minus 31, printing minus 32. It's got the 8-day at minus 34. So there's theoretical support between minus 31 and 34, which is the 5 and 8-day moving averages, and then the 13-day at minus 40. Such is the strength of this uptrend. And it looks like it's faltering at the moment, particularly whilst it's below the old gap fill at minus 31. The odds are that we're going to put these short-term moving averages under pressure, but such has been the strength that we really need to move and close below the 13-day at minus 40 to be dealing this instrument a body blow. So use the minus 40 level as the key support. It could easily come back and test there. We've got a negative stochastic. The pressure is on the July-August. But the hourly chart here is suggesting that actually we've probably done enough in the very short term. So it's the 5 and 8s that you need to be watched probably into the afternoon. The AUGSAT is actually in better condition. It's holding the 5-day at minus 32. It's printing minus 30. Only a move and close below the 8-day at minus 37 and the 13-day at minus 42. These blue and green lines here would suggest further downside. The stochastic is negative. I suspect we need to test the 8, maybe even the 13-day at some point in the next 24, 48 hours. but use the 5-day at minus 32 as a barometer. Whilst that holds, it still maintains some bite, but it looks as if it's beginning to look a little bit fragile. Now, the June WTI, it's holding the 5-day at minus 132. It's printing minus 129. If it were to fail at 132, then look for a move back to 147, the 8-day moving average. It's beginning to look fragile, and if this stochastic were to turn, and that would happen if it fails at minus 132, you'd see it with bearish divergence, which would be a warning to be very careful with this spread. The 60-minute chart on the left here is suggesting that it's got a little bit overcooked to the downside, and may well try and hold this 5-day moving average at minus 132. Use the 5 as a pivot. It's very, very important. The red deck on TI is holding above the 5-day at minus 244, and whilst that's the case, there's no downside. Were it to breach minus 244, and there's a reasonable chance it will, it would probably head straight for the 8-day at minus 267, and this stochastic would turn negative with bearish divergence, which would be a warning for us all that this back-end spread is looking very fragile and vulnerable. The 60-minute chart, too illiquid this morning to give us too many clues. That's all for today, folks. Good luck, good trading, and bon appetit.